Hello and welcome everyone, it's me, TheLaval, also known as the Power To-Do List, back for you with another video and another deck profile. And today I will be showing you guys my current domain Monarchs list. And yeah, I'd say let's get right into it. This is basically the same list I showcased in Straight Outta the Toolbox about 3 weeks ago. But I still wanted to go over it nonetheless, and starting off, the main deck is just as then Ether the Heavenly Monarch. If you tribute summon him, you can summon a Monarch from your deck, or at least a monster that has the Monarch stat line, which would be at least 2400 attack and 1000 defense. That monster gets returned to your hand in the end phase, and also you can tribute summon him during your opponent's main phase. If you banish a Monarch spell and trap. Neat thing about him is, of course, summoning on your opponent's turn, because that nets you some neat combos with Stormforth and also with Caius. Summoning Caius on your opponent's turn through his effect and popping cards your opponent controls is one of your main ways of interruption. So he is definitely great, and a 3-off at least. So then going into his dark counterpart, we have 3 Erebus, the Underworld Monarch. If you tribute summon him, you can ditch, just like Ether, 2 Monarch spells and traps from your hand or deck, and shuffle 1 card from your opponent's hand or from their field or their graveyard back into their deck. If you get him onto the field turn 1, you mostly want to spin a hand card. And yeah, his second effect is alright. He retrieves a Monarch while he's in grave. But you mostly want to shuffle cards back with his first effect. So he is definitely great for that. Then, going into a more variable part of this deck, I do run 2 Mega Caius. He basically has Caius effect, and with the added bonus of if he banishes a dark monster, he banishes all cards with the same name in the hand, main deck, and extra deck of your opponent. And if you tributed a dark monster for his summon, you can instead target 2 cards. Of course, neat. I really like the removal and this kind of chain destruction effect. So I do run 2 Mega Caius, also because Caius is probably my favorite of the original Monarchs. But you can definitely run other Mega forms in this spot. Going into the smaller Monarchs, I do run 2 Caius, as mentioned. He's my favorite Monarch. Yeah, when he's tribute summoned, target a card on the field, banish that target, and if you do, burn your opponent for 1000 if it was a dark monster. Sadly, this effect is mandatory, so you really need to watch out with this. But I think basically most of the Monarchs, no, Mobius is not mandatory. But yeah, this is mandatory, so you definitely have to watch out there, but I still think the banishing is very neat. And yeah, that is it with him. Then I run the 1 Mobius for back row removal, which is very neat. Just being able to Twin Twister on a tribute summon is really cool. So I definitely like running him. Then, as mentioned with Ether, you run the 1 Caius. When he's normal or special summoned, target up to 2 cards on the field. Those targets get destroyed, and the player that controlled one of the destroyed cards can draw a card for each card destroyed. Yeah. He is basically your main way of interruption, except Stormforth, Ether on one of your opponent's monsters, which is really neat. But as mentioned in the Straight Outta the Toolbox, I don't like giving my opponent free cards, so I only run 1, but I do run 3 Edea, the Heavenly Squire. If he's normal or special summoned, if she's, judging by her body type, if this card is normal or special summoned, you can summon a monster with 800 attack and 1000 defense, basically the Squire or Vassal stat line, from your deck in defense, or except herself. And also you can special summon from the extra deck. Also, if she leaves the field, you can target one of your banished Monarch spells and traps and add that target to your hand. Really neat if you consider that Pantheism banishes itself for its second effect, which basically nets you Pantheism again and lets you draw cards again. But yeah, you wanna get Idea out as fast as possible. This is why we run 1/1 and 1 Reinforcements of the Army, because Idea is a warrior and a level 1, so getting to Idea as quick as possible is the best case scenario. And the card you mostly want to summon off her effect is Eidos, the Underworld Squire. If he is normal or special summoned, you can, during your main phase this turn, in addition to your normal summon or set, tribute summon a monster as a tribute summon, which is great. Adding another normal summon basically means you can, if you got Idea out by one of your special summoning ways, mainly the 1/1 or by Eidos Graveyard effect, you can basically get 2 Monarchs on the board in one turn, which definitely helps. And talking about the effect of Eidos that gets Idea out, that would be that if he is in the graveyard, you can banish him from your graveyard and summon a monster with 800 attack and 1000 defense from your graveyard in defense. But he locks you out of the extra deck as well. So yeah. Then just 2 other vessels I think are neat, which would be Mithra, the Thunder Vessel. If she's in your hand, you can special summon her by this effect. And yeah, you just give your opponent a Vassal token, which would be Thunder Light level 1 with 800 attack and 1000 defense, essentially her stat line. Which, yeah, is very neat. And also, if she gets tributed for a tribute summon, you can perform an additional tribute summon in addition to your normal summon, which, just like Eidos, helps you a lot with getting more Monarchs onto the board. And then the one, the only, the domain of the true Monarchs at 3. While you have no cards in your extra deck and you are the only player that controls a tribute summoned monster, no person can use their extra deck. Great effect. This card would be amazing just with that text alone, but it has 2 other effects, which is really neat, because when a tribute summoned monster you control attacks one of your opponent's monsters, it gains 800 attack during damage calc only. Something neat, helps your Monarchs to get that edge in battle, but in general the stat lines don't leave much to desire. So yeah. Last effect being that you can show your opponent 1 monster with a 2800 attack and 1000 defense, basically Mega Monarch or Ethers or Erebus stat line, and reduce that monsters by 2. Basically enables you to more easily go into Ether or Erebus or your bigger Monarchs. So yeah, this is a great card. Run it at 3, and you definitely want to have the 1 terraforming to grab it, because it's so amazing. Then finally back at 3. 3, Pantheism of the Monarchs. Discard a Monarch spell or trap from your hand, draw 2 cards. Really great. And you can banish this card from your graveyard, reveal 3 Monarch spells and traps from your deck to your opponent. Your opponent chooses one of them, and that gets added to your hand. You can only use the second effect of Pantheism of the Monarchs once per turn. Great card. As mentioned, you want to recycle this with Idea so you can draw into more cards. The second effect mostly used to grab yourself a Tenacity if you didn't draw it, or one of your consistency spells or protection spells in the form of March and Return. But yeah, great card, finally back at 3, and you don't want to run any less of it. Yeah, then just as mentioned, we have the 1/1 and the 1 Reinforcements of the Army, both cards which basically effect text basically being summon Idea from deck, grab Idea from deck. Easy as that. Then we have 3 Stormforth of the Monarchs. Once during the turn you activated this card, if you would tribute summon a monster, you can use 1 monster your opponent controls as tribute if you would control that. You can only activate 1 Stormforth of the Monarchs per turn. Setting this, flipping this on your opponent's turn and being like, tribute summon Ether is great. You get rid of one of your opponent's monsters and you get your Ether on the board with only using one of your monsters. And also that Ether will grab your Caius, which will pop further cards, so you are definitely able to kind of throw a bone into your opponent's plans, which is kind of neat. Then, as mentioned, we play triple Tenacity of the Monarchs. Reveal a monster with 2,400 or more attack and 1,000 defense. Although it has to be 2,400 attack and 1,000 defense, or 2,800 attack and 1,000 defense. So basically only Monarchs. So reveal a Monarch in your hand, add a Monarch spell or trap from your deck to your hand. If you don't draw this, you grab this off Pantheism to fetch either March or Return. And yeah, it's great for that. So yeah, definitely a 3. Oh, then we have 2 March of the Monarchs. All tribute summoned monsters you control cannot be destroyed by or targeted by card effects, which is very neat. Giving your Monarchs that much more staying power on the board. I do run 2 instead of just 1. I do run Return at 1, but that is something I want to sometimes really draw this card, because March does offer a good amount of protection. Doesn't protect the deck from hard losing to a Harpy's Feather Duster, but hey, that's the price you pay. Then just the 1 return. If you tribute summon a monster, you can essentially add a Monarch from your deck to your hand. Because you either add a monster with 2,400 attack and 1,000 defense, or 2,800 attack and 1,000 defense, but a different name from the tribute summoned monster. Which, yeah, it's just neat for that, grabbing more Monarchs from your deck so you don't draw them, and reduce the overall brickiness of Monarchs. And yeah, closing off this profile would be to the Prime Monarch. If this is face up on your field as a trap card, you can once per turn target 2 Monarch spells and traps in your graveyard, shuffle them back into the deck and draw a card, which is of course great and something you definitely want to keep in mind, and maybe want to save a copy of the Prime Monarch for, to just have this in your back row to just continuously recur your spells and traps, because you're going to be sending a lot of them off Erebus and Ether's effect. But the second effect is also great. This is one of your main cards you want to ditch off Ether and Erebus, because if you send this to the graveyard, you can banish a Monarch spell and trap from your graveyard and summon this as a normal monster, which would be a Fairy, Light, level 5, 1,000 attack, 2,400 defense. In defense, it is not treated as a trap card, which is of course great because it nets your free tribute material, and that is something you definitely wanna get with Monarchs. So this is basically it for my Monarch deck profile. I will probably put the straight out of the toolbox somewhere here on the screen. But this has been it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you next time. But until then, goodbye.